It is said that in New Orleans, culture doesn't come down from on high, it bubbles up from the streets. And perhaps that's not the only thing that bubbles up. Time once again to sit back and relax with your favorite drink and listen. Michael Duchamp drove down the rain-slick street. His brown eyes were narrowed as he thought about the dream he'd had. All he remembered was his brother's cut-off panic scream. He could have turned over and gone back to sleep, but it's been more than 4 years since he'd spoken with Robert. And even now, Mike could feel the anger build while his car flew down the road. Mike eased up on the gas. No need to catch the attention of some traffic cops. He was a cop too, homicide, but maybe they wouldn't cut him any slack. It'd be better to stay within the speed limit. All he needed was to end up in a cell while his brother needed him. There were no clues he could point to, but it felt like time was running out. The painful flash of regret made Mike grind his teeth. Maybe he shouldn't have got hot-headed and hung up. Ignoring his brother's later calls didn't help either. Why? With a shake of his head, he pushed those thoughts away like a too-full screaming plate of suck. He had to concentrate on getting to Robert. Mike just knew with certainty that his brother was in trouble and needed help. Stupid argument be damned. Again, Mike looked up at the electrical storm's swirling green clouds. Chills raced down his back. There was just something wrong here, but he couldn't put his finger on it. Maybe a weather guy, weather person, would be able to explain what's going on, or maybe they wouldn't know squat. If Mike had some spare bucks, he would definitely put it on the squat option. He clenched his jaw. With great difficulty, he managed to relax. That stupid storm was the reason he was driving and not flying. Using a plane would get him there faster, but when he tried to use Bookem, his favorite hotel booking app, it showed that all flights had been cancelled, so he had to drive. Even though the scenery was almost a dark green blur, he remembered enough landmarks, so being lost wasn't an option. Didn't need a GPS. Mike had heard too many horror stories about them. The route was so familiar, even though he hadn't been through here for decades. His eyes were filled with tears while his heart was filled with fury. It was the last night. No, he wasn't going to think about that. He had to focus on getting to New Orleans and finding his brother. That was the only thing that mattered. A clearing came up on him. Several smoking cars were at the edge of the storm, while a cute, short black woman leaned on a car with scorch marks on the rear. Mike gave her a quick threat assessment. He was out in the middle of nowhere and alone. It's best to be careful. She had an oval face with eyes with a slight slant to them. Her hair was short. Mike noted that her jeans had scorch marks on them that seemed to go with the burn marks on the rear of her car. The other cars looked like they got hit by lightning in the front, and the drivers, well, they were burnt, smoking lumps. Mike looked away and thought about the black woman. There was something off about her. She didn't seem like a civilian. Would a normal person stay in the area with 2 toasted corpses? Even though he liked what he was looking at, he decided to be extra careful. Mike slowly got out of the car. The woman walked up. Mike liked that she didn't show up with a wide grin and start talking crap, but then again, that could be a sign of someone who's more of a threat. He pointed towards her toasted car. Looks like you're going to have problems with that rental. She smiled. It was a small one, but there was some warmth behind it. Yeah, I need your help. I need a ride into New Orleans. I can pay. Her clipped New York accent kind of annoyed him. Most of the cops he had to deal with from that city acted like dicks, but there were a few that were just regular cops. Again, Mike just had this feeling that this woman was special. Special what, he didn't know. No need to pay me. Again, he pointed at her car. What happened? The woman looked at him. Well, I drove in a bit and it didn't feel right. I don't like driving in the rain, but this felt different, like it was dangerous. So I turned around and got zapped in the rear. While the woman told her tale, Mike kept a close watch on her face for tells. Something that would show him she was lying about something. So far, he didn't see anything. His gut kept whispering that she was leaving some details out. He'd gone up against some pretty smooth grifters, and it was pretty hard to tell if they were lying. There was also the chance that whatever the woman left out was a pretty useless detail anyway, or she thought it was useless. Then again, he still felt there was something important that she was leaving out. Mike looked up at the storm. It still bugged him, and he remembered that his brother needed help. Should he take the woman with him? He looked up at the swirling green and black clouds again. It almost felt like something he didn't want to see was trying to poke its way out, like something moving under the covers. But, well, you live alone. Mike shook his head. He knew those thoughts were scary and distracting. Just stick to the mission, as the army guys would say on TV. "Are you okay?" the woman asked. Mike flipped a coin in his head to trust the woman. It fell down. Whatever. Well, he was going to get some, if possible. Probably after his brother was taken care of. He stuck out his hand. "Name's Mike Duchamp." The woman grabbed his hand in a quick, firm shake. "Shalea Green. Friends call me Shelley. Well, enemies call me... I'm not going to be a potty mouth." Shelley smiled. It was a 1,000-watt one. All too soon, the lights faded. Mike smiled. He liked when people shook with a firm grip and didn't shake like dead fish or squeeze too hard. That was a sign of someone who's a dick. With a flourish, he pointed at his car. "Your carriage awaits." Shelley giggled and headed over to the passenger side of the car. He liked the sound. It felt good. Like finding $1 in a pocket when you want a candy bar and you think you have no change. And then he had to ruin that little bit of nice. Mike took another look up and regretted it. There was something about the storm that just rubbed him the wrong way, but he couldn't stop gawking. And in a few seconds, he was going into it. He hoped that he would do better than the other folks who got zapped. A moment later, he crossed himself and then got into the car. It had been a while since he'd been in a church, but somehow he felt that he needed more help. Mike turned the car into the center because of the wrecks in his way. As expected, heavy rain hit his windshield. It sounded like someone was throwing pebbles at him. And then it stopped. That was unexpected. He wondered what sort of storm just has rain at the edges. And there were more things to wonder about. The trees looked in fine shape, but there were slick, shiny spots in the road where lightning had struck. He wondered why lightning would avoid the trees and hit the ground and cars. Speaking of cars, several of them had burning passengers and drivers in them. He avoided looking at them. It just didn't feel right. Finally, they drove past the Zap cars on both sides. Then Mike moved to the lane going to New Orleans. There was a bright flash to the right of the car, and then gravel struck the car. Mike sped up. More lightning strikes started hitting around the car. Wait, why isn't lightning hitting the trees? No reply. For a moment, Mike was afraid to look at his passenger. Oh, maybe she'd be a burning lump of blackened meat. A quick sniff got him nothing. No, he'd have to look. Did he want to? Not really, but the desire to know was strong. He glanced over to his right. Shelley was just sat in her seat with her eyes closed. She wasn't burning flesh. Well, that was a relief. No weird Twilight Zone stuff here. Well, except for the storm. Mike turned his attention to the road. The lightning strikes were hitting around the car more frequently, and he was losing sight of the road because of the brightness of the flashes. It seemed that any moment the lightning would either hit the car or he would smash into something. Rain pelted the car for a moment, and then they were out. Mike took his foot off the gas and coasted to a stop. "All right, I got you through the storm or whatever that was. I'll let you out here and you can find a bus or something," Mike said. Shelley sat up and opened her eyes. For a moment she looked around. "Really? You're going to let me out here? It's a dead zone. Heck, I even used Google Maps and I could see it was a dead zone. Mike frowned. He started to say something, but then he looked around too. The sun was painting the area in an orange glow. It looked so cozy, the sun setting light on abandoned buildings stretching for miles. Lots of houses with no windows or doors, and it was quiet, too quiet. No birds or other people or anything. Something about that started to bug him. Yeah, he thought, this wasn't a good place for a woman to be roaming around in. Heck, it didn't look like a place for a man either. A frown parked itself on Shelley's pretty face. Hey, sorry about that. Didn't know this area was abandoned. How about I get you to New Orleans, the city, and I'll find you a hotel there? Shelley took one more look around. Yeah, that's better. Look, I have to check on my brother first. Hope you're okay with that, Mike said, and then started the car. No problem, Shelley said. They drove through the area. At first it seemed to be totally abandoned, but Mike kept getting the feeling that there was something, or some things, living there. His foot began to press on the gas more. He couldn't see anything other than houses with no windows or doors, but every once in a while there'd be this flicker of movement like something moving away from a window or doorway. He didn't really want to know or see what was hiding from him, but he had a feeling that eventually the hidden would reveal themselves. Shelley's voice filled the car low and with warning in it. Hey, be careful with your speed. If you go too slow, you'll look like a tourist gawking at everything. Nobody here likes the extra attention. On the other hand, if you go too fast, then something's going to think that you know what you shouldn't, and that's not good for us. Drive a little bit faster than the speed limit, okay? Do it now. A feeling crept up on Mike. The hairs on the back of his head were rising to attention. Someone or something was watching him. Maybe it had a sniper rifle on him, and in a few minutes his brains would be splattered on the windshield. He just had to survive so he could get to Robert. Another idea crawled up on him. How did Shelley know what was going on? Then again, maybe this wasn't the right time to ask, since he tried to dump her in this area filled with things he didn't want to see. The buildings turned into a blur. Slow down, Shelley yelled. Mike gasped. How could he slow down? He felt like a bullet was coming for him. Gotta go fast. Somehow he focused and slowly pulled his foot off the gas. It felt like he was pulling pieces of his shoe off a sticky metal plate. Slowly, the building stopped looking like a blur. Just like that, the feeling of imminent death faded. Mike kept his eyes face forward and only looked to the sides when he was at an intersection. A moment later, he took a shuddering breath. What was that? I don't know, and I don't want to know. Let's get to your brother before nightfall, Shelley said while her pretty face was filled with worry. He glanced to his left and right. The neighborhood wasn't abandoned. There were lights in some of the windows and cars parked in driveways, but he didn't feel safe. There was something off about this area too. Where was everybody? What if there were no people? Maybe the whole neighborhood was abandoned. Mike pushed those thoughts away and then nodded. In silence, they rode to his brother's home. While he pulled up to his brother's house, Mike went through his memories. Not the real painful ones, no. That was too much for now. Robert had inherited the house from his foster parents. He lucked out. Also, the mortgage was paid up. It really was his house now. Well, the fight they'd had wasn't about that, though. Mike looked up at the house. It needed a slight painting, and the yard needed a mow, but it still looked like someone was taking care of things. He hoped that it wasn't too late. Shelley, stay in the car. I'll come get you. Sure, just don't take too long. I don't like the feel of this area, Shelley said, and then looked around again. Mike left the car and pushed away thoughts about what they'd gone through. It was just too strange. All of the riding around had led to this. He hoped that Robert was still alive. Mike rang the doorbell on the black painted wooden door. Robert opened the door. His eyes widened. Oh, shit. Mike! and he grabbed Mike and held him close while blubbering away. "Hey, man, God, I'm so sorry about what I'd said about Dad. Should have held my tongue." Mike hugged his brother back. "Nah, man, look, it's in the past. Don't worry." Robert released his brother and then wiped his brown eyes. "God, how did you know that I needed you? Things got so strange, so bad, so quick. I couldn't even use the phone to call." Mike wiped his eyes too. "I just had this feeling you needed help, so here I am." Robert smiled and then looked at the sky. Fear crept into his face and a frown appeared. Then he looked at the car. "Things aren't so good around here at night. You better get your friend, or whoever she is, inside." Mike didn't like seeing fear in his brother's face. It just didn't feel right. "Yeah, sure." He walked back to the car. Robert yelled, "Hurry up! Look, I'm closing and locking the door when the sun goes down." Shelley left the car when Mike approached. Mike stopped for a moment. "You know what's going on?" Shelley shook her head. "No, I'd rather find out from inside a house with a strong wooden door than outside." They made it, just as the last rays of the dying sun faded out. Robert made sure all of the locks were secure. Mike saw all of the locks, and a chill went down his back. He wondered what was really going on. The last time I saw so many locks was when I visited a friend in NYC, and he lived in a good neighborhood. Well, that joke should have gotten some laughs. Silence. Shelley looked at Robert, and Robert looked back. It reminded Mike of the time he went on a raid with some other cops into a crack house. Raiding them was the worst. There was a range of folks from hostile to just high. There was also an unknown element to it. Some drug-crazed person could jump out of nowhere and jab someone with needles contaminated with God knows what. So yeah, when the cops rode to the crack house, everybody wondered if they'd ride back home healthy. Now he recognized that sharing of fear. "Robbie, you gotta tell Shelley and me what's going on," Mike said. Robert nodded. "Yeah, but first we gotta fix dinner. Bad news doesn't feel so awful on a full stomach. Oh, I ran out of beer. Just got some Dr. Peppers." "Geez, Robbie, now I know you're really in danger. No beer. Well, I guess it could be worse. You could have that nasty Mr. Pip stuff," Mike said. Robbie smiled. It was weak and fleeting. "Hey, don't you go disrespecting the Honorable Pibbs. I make a cake using that stuff, and it won a culinary prize. People love it at my restaurant." Mike sighed dramatically. Some folks. No accounting for taste." A moment passed, and the levity drained out of the room like blood oozing from a fatal wound. "Shelley, do you know how to cook?" Robert asked. "So far I've managed not to burn water. Does that count?" Shelley said. "Good enough," Robert said. They left the foyer and went to the kitchen. The first thing that Robert did was to close all of the window shades. Mike watched him and got another chill. It was like watching someone from an old 50s horror movie trying to make the house safe from what? A few moments later, he managed to tear his eyes off of the spectacle of his brother pulling the window shades shut. Too bad. Mike remembered mornings when just a faint ray of light would bounce around the lemon-yellow kitchen and turn it into a little slice of heaven. That was back when Big Rob LePain still had his job and was the best foster father ever. No, father. Then the bad times came and the Axaco textile plant shut down. Big Rob was a chef at a restaurant across the street, not a worker. But the shutdown hurt him too. Nobody would come in, and eventually Big Rob's closed down. Things went south, as they say, as Robert Sr. hit the bottle and anyone else too slow to get out of the way. Mike's eyes burned. He grabbed a napkin to dry them. For a sad moment, he wondered if those mornings actually existed, or if it was just all pain and loss. "Mike, we sure did have some good times in this kitchen," Robert said while his brown eyes went back to the past. Mike wanted to disagree, but deep down he knew Robert was right. It wasn't all dark. Robert sniffled. Shelley rolled her eyes. Sorry to break in and be rude, but what are we going to eat? Robert looked in the white fridge. Mike was surprised that it was almost empty. Made his fridge with its meager amount of food in it look overstocked. Then Robert checked the freezer section. It looked like there was plenty of room to rent there too, empty and cold. Robbie, you're a chef. Why is your fridge emptier than mine? Mike asked. Robert turned around and a look of fear crossed his face. A chill went down Mike's back again. He didn't like what he saw and dreaded what was coming next. You don't have a store nearby to buy stuff from? Shelley asked. Her eyes flicked from Robbie to Mike. More chills hit Mike's back. Hey, Mike, remember that Piggly Wiggly we used to go to? Yeah. Well, it was open until recently. Guess I should tell you everything, Robert said and looked down. He then looked up. I was driving back to the store a few weeks ago, and I saw something. What? The area near the store was not that great even when times were good. After that, it was just abandoned buildings for miles and miles. Anyway, I saw something. Bright white eyes in a face that was darker than midnight. When I glanced at the road and looked back, it was gone, Robbie said, sweat breaking out on his forehead. What, you saw a black person and that scared you? Mike frowned. Robert sighed. No, yeah, it was a black person, but it was something that was car tire black or even darker. Like what you see in a lawyer's heart or worse. Oh, not brown. No black person I know has totally white eyes either. When I came back, I didn't see it at the same place, but driving home I caught a quick glimpse of it again somewhere else. Changed my route. Burned up too much gas driving out of the way, but I would always either see or catch quick glimpses. Well, after a while, I couldn't do the drive anymore. Mike looked at the shuttered windows and looked back at Robert. Is that why you shuttered the windows? So you wouldn't see whatever's looking in? Robert nodded, more sweat dripping down his brow. He brought out a grey hanky and wiped his brow. I'm so scared. I'll see those eyes at the foot of my bed and that... Shelley frowned. We're here. We won't let that happen, Robert. For a moment, Mike sensed that there was something different again. Still couldn't put his finger on it. He nodded. Yeah, Robbie, we're here. Robert sniffled and blew his nose. Thank you, both of you. Shelley, you can call me Robbie. Guys, I'm going to go down to the basement and check the freezer. Might have something down there. In the morning, we'll be gone, if we survive. You want me to come with? Mike asked. For 2 brief moments, Robert stood tall like a king. This is my house now. I'll be fine. Then he shrunk back down to a frightened man while he shuffled off to the basement. Shelley looked at Mike. Mike looked back. What's going on around here? She asked. He shrugged. Don't know. And I don't want to know. Yeah, sometimes you don't get a choice. You'll get to know even though you wish you didn't, Shelley said, and then walked up to the shuttered windows. You know, my mama was afraid of vampires. Loved movies about them, but the nightmares not so much. She told me about one dream in which she was closing all of the windows, but at the last one, the vampire grabbed her and she woke up. Is your mama all right? Mike asked. Yeah, she gave up vampire movies after that. For some reason, she still watches horror movies. But that one creature just gave her the worst nightmare, Shelley said as she pulled out a brown wooden chair from under the table and sat on it. I feel like that when I watch CNN. God, that Anderson Cooper is just so pale, Mike joked. My mother also gave that station up. Too much real horror there, Shelley said as she glanced around the kitchen. Well, what do you think my brother saw? Is it possible? Mike asked. Shelley shrugged. There are so many strange things out there. Did you see anything when we were in those abandoned neighborhoods? I was too busy driving. Didn't see anything but blacktop, he said. It wasn't exactly the truth. The fleeting glimpses were enough to convince him that a full view was something he didn't want to have. Robert broke in. What didn't you see? Mike saw that Robbie had a small chicken in his hand. Well, a pigeon could bully it. Yeah, what's that? Cornish game hen. Good eating for one, but too little for three unless I put it in a soup. I might need someone to go outside and get some rocks. Silence filled the kitchen. Shelley and Mike shook their heads. Well, there goes my chance to be a comedian. What didn't you see, Mike? Wait, what's the deal with rocks? Mike asked. Just a joke. Haven't you heard the story, Stone Soup? Mike shook his head. Let me see what cans are left around. Again, Mike, what didn't you see? Robbie said, and then placed the tiny hen in the sink. You know, the road that leads into town? Well, we drove through that area. Looks like it was totally abandoned, Mike said. He was hoping that the subject could be dealt with quickly. Too many bad thoughts and feelings for him to deal with. Robert rummaged through 2 cabinets, but didn't find any food. Yeah, you don't have to say that anymore. He looked through more. Mike thought that Shelley would say something, but she kept quiet. Ooh, come here, you beautiful dented can of asparagus soup, Robert crooned. We got some type of supper now. More rummaging produced some string beans and some really small potatoes. Briefly, Mike wondered how much food Robert had squirreled away, and how long it would take him to run out after he'd stopped shopping. Well, that thought faded away as Robert started cooking. The meal was great. Well, Mike hadn't had a home-cooked meal in a while that didn't need soy sauce. And the company was even better. But eventually, the warmth of the conversations faded, and it seemed like the darkness pressed against the windows. Any second, he expected them to creak from the weight. Everyone retreated into their own heads as they wondered what was going to happen next. Shelley stood up and stretched. Well, that was a fine meal, even if we just shared a sparrow. Robert grinned for a split second before worry clamped down again on his face. Mike hated seeing his brother like this. I guess we need to get ready for bed. More fear crossed Robert's face. Shelley glanced at her watch. Too early. It's only 9. Hey, Robbie, do you have Netflix? Robert looked away and then back at Shelley. There's something wrong with the TV. I read now. Again, Shelley glanced at Mike. Mike looked back. Robbie, what's wrong with your TV? Robert looked away and then back at Mike. It's better if I show you. Do you have to? Couldn't you just tell us? Shelley said. Robert shook his head and got up. He turned, and Shelley and Mike got up and followed him out of the kitchen. Mike wondered why he didn't ask for a tour of the house. Yeah, he'd grown up in it, but he was sure Robert had done some changing, or, well, maybe not. It was just a few steps to the living room. A lumpy beige couch faced a dusty table where a TV should be. Mike thought about asking, but then he didn't really want to know. Well, he wasn't sure. Robert led them to a guest bedroom and they all filed in. There in the small room, sitting on a table facing the bed, was the dusty, missing TV with the remote on top. Mike grabbed the remote. Let's see what's on ESPN or CNN. He missed the look of fear that crossed Robert's face. Mike hit the on button, and the screen filled with a greyish-white light, and the lights dimmed for a moment. 2 blurry creatures tore at each other in some sort of forest. The sound of claws tearing into soft flesh was so realistic that Mike's stomach started to churn. Must be a nature show or one about politics. No one laughed. Then the 2 creatures stopped clawing at each other and faced the screen. Mike had a strange feeling that the creatures were looking at him. A chill raced down his back. Yes, he was quite sure now. Robbie said, "Turn it off." Mike wanted to see what would happen next. The creatures started walking toward him. He could see them getting larger as they approached. "Change the channel," Shelley yelled. Mike hit the button and nothing happened. The creatures kept on moving closer. He tried to will his fingers to hit the power button, but they felt like lead blocks. just as the creatures got close enough for Mike to get a detailed look at the bloody, oozing gashes that each monster had. Shelley snatched the remote from Mike's nerveless hand. "Sorry." She hit the power button, and the screen went blank. Well, Mike would have said something, but then he saw the plug for the TV lying on the floor. He looked at Robert, and Robert just shook his head. "Robbie, I think you should lock this door just to be careful," Shelley said as they left the room. Robert nodded and then walked past Shelley to lock the door. Again, Mike wondered what was going on. TV shouldn't be working without being plugged in. "Robbie, did you call the cable company about this? What's going on?" Mike said as they sat in the living room. Robert shook his head. "At first my landline and cell worked fine, but later on I started hearing whispering in the background on both, like there was another conversation. You know, like those old-timey party lines. Except I didn't feel like I was having any fun." Mike shrugged. "Yeah, I used to date a woman who did work with wireless phones. She said companies were always finding ways to get more data in limited lines. Maybe your service was just being too cheap, or it was a peak service time." Robert's eyes flicked to the empty table. "One time, I tried to call a friend and got something else. And yeah, I used the phone's memory, so the number was right." Shelley looked at Robert. "Something else?" Robert sighed. It growled, but that wasn't the worst thing. It sounded like... Robert stopped. A moment later, he started to sniffle. It sounded like Dad, but again, it wasn't him. It was like the worst part of him had answered the phone. Mike looked away. He fought back the memories of the day he'd driven away. It took him a few moments to gather his thoughts. "Why did you stay? I mean, the TV, the phones. Strange black things would have sent me packing a long time ago." Robert frowned. "Well, you were good at knowing when to throw in the towel." Shelley stood up. "Guys, let's not go there. I know why Robert stayed. You didn't believe any of the weird experiences were real. Like, oh, I must have seen something the wrong way." "Robert, why did you stay with him? You knew what he was doing to me. I don't blame you because you were a kid, but Mama," Mike said as his voice rose. "I don't know why you didn't or couldn't. But Mama, why? Why did she... She loved him and you. It broke her up inside when the two of you didn't get along. Did you know if you'd stayed, you would have gotten a house?" Robert replied. Mike's eyes widened a bit. "What? He hated me. If you knew what he did to me..." Robert looked down. One by one the words tore themselves out of his chest. "The night you ran away, Rob, Daddy, tried to kill himself. But we managed to talk him out of it. He stayed up all night as he cried and talked. Do you know what his greatest regret was? You. He shouldn't have hit you, but he was hurting so bad. No job and so many bills. Fighting a feeling of worthlessness every day. It wasn't about you. It never was." Mike opened his mouth and then closed it. He just didn't know what to say or do. All of the time he thought that Daddy had hated him. For some reason, all the great times they'd had, fishing and even learning how to cook, seemed to be like lies or just fairy tales. Things that were far from reality. Shelley sat down and just watched. Her big brown eyes took in every detail. Robert looked up. "If you'd come back, you'd have seen a great change in Daddy. He went to some sort of therapy and got 2 jobs. Well, they were a big step down from someone that ran their own restaurant, but it was money that we needed. Still, things were pretty tight. Mama and I both got jobs, and we managed to make an okay life for ourselves. We got the mortgage paid off, so no bank could throw us out, and, well, a few years after that, Daddy died." Mike looked up too. His eyes stung, but he managed not to cry. "Robbie, I'm sorry. I didn't know." "Hey, I understand. Somehow you knew I was in trouble and you came. I'm glad you're here, brother," Robert said. Mike dug in his pocket for something to wipe his eyes, but there were no napkins. Well, Shelley got up and offered him one of hers. Mike took one to wipe his eyes, while Shelley sat back down on the couch. Not to, dampen the moment, but we need to make some plans for tonight's sleep, Shelley said. I don't want to wake up and see those black things hanging over me. Sorry, Shelley, Robert said. Shelley waved her right hand dismissively. Hey, I'm black, but I'm not that black. Yeah, I get what you're saying. How about we camp out in the living room? He placed a chair under the door to the TV and a bottle. Why? Robert asked. Mike nodded. Yeah, I saw that in a movie where Mel Gibson played a paranoid cabbie. If something pushes the chair, the bottle falls and breaks. I also suggest that someone stays awake just in case. Well, he hoped nothing would happen, but even thinking about what he'd seen gave him another chill. Some of the gashes were pretty deep. A scary thought suggested that maybe shooting the creatures wouldn't work. Shelley nodded. Okay, I'll stay up for 4 hours, then someone will have to relieve me. In the morning, we get out of here. Yeah, well, I already have my bag packed, Robert said. Only one bag? Mike asked. I'm not a woman, and I can buy cooking utensils anywhere, Robert said, and then winked at Mike. You guys are so freaking cruel, Shelley said, and then laughed a little. That little bit of levity warmed everyone until the pillows and blankets were placed in the living room. They moved the couch and the table so there was more than enough room for sleeping. Mike noticed that Robert didn't go upstairs to get his blankets and pillow. Well, he guessed that Robert didn't want to be alone. While they moved the furniture around so they could have more room for the blankets, Shelley smiled. Hey guys, it's going to be fun. Instead of being under siege by unknown threats, we could make it like a little slumber party. Robert shook his head. Well, I ate the last of the popcorn, and there's nothing left but cold water. Mike grimaced. Well, yeah, I doubt there's anything good on TV. Shelley sighed. It was kind of dramatic. No ghost stories either? I know this great one about a phantom crack hole. The combined glares from Mike and Robbie made Shelley shrug. Okay, I'll just take the first watch. After taking a white bedsheet from Robert and placing it on the floor, Mike looked around. He needed some time to think. Hey, Shelley, can I do the first watch? Shelley nodded. Mike sat on the couch while everyone else settled into their blankets on the floor. Then he got up to place a chair under the door just in case. Nobody objected. It seemed kind of crazy, like something out of a horror movie, but no, he was actually living it and wanted to continue. Then there were the revelations Robbie had dropped on him. It seemed so fantastical. The man he thought was a heartless monster was actually a person who suffered. Gingerly, he went back through his memories like a nervous soldier going through a minefield. The good memories felt good, but they provided a painful contrast against the bad ones. Of course, those were overlaid with a feeling of betrayal. Why would someone that loved him so much do such a terrible thing? Well, now he knew better, but his emotions, like a car speeding down a rain-slit road, would take time to slow down. And that's when he heard it. The sound of a bottle smashing itself against the floor. He looked at Shelley and Robbie. They were still like statues. For a moment he wondered if they were alive. Something struck the door, causing a thunderous boom. A crack zigzagged down the center of the door. Mike looked at the two still sleepers and wondered what was wrong with them. Another blow hit the door and shattered it, flinging pieces of wood toward him. And something dark flew toward Mike. Mike woke up with sweat pouring down his face, and his gun pointed toward the door, ready to fire. Too bad, Shelley was in the way. Shelley recoiled from the gun in her face. Hey, if I knew making jokes about crack whores offended you, I would have joked about something else. Mike knew as he put his gun back in his holster that Shelley wasn't an ordinary person. She was definitely someone special. Probably someone in law enforcement, maybe. Sorry. Hey, no problem. Some folks don't like being woken up, Shelley said while she waved her hand dismissively. He looked at her pretty face. Yeah, sorry. I was dreaming that someone was smashing the door down. Shelley nodded. Well, I dreamt that something had found a way to place the bottle on the floor and was seeping from under the door. Then it was slowly flowing to this door, and of course, I couldn't wake up fast enough. Well, I dreamt I was in a butcher shop that sold human meat. That wasn't the weirdest part. I was getting hungry, Robbie said. Mike got up and stretched. Damn, no one got any sleep. I think we should just leave as soon as dawn comes. There was no dissent. He moved to the left side of the couch and sat down. After that all-too-real nightmare, Mike didn't want to risk sleeping again. So he tried to think about Shelley. He'd seen how civvies act, and she was pretty calm. Some cops would have bugged out by now. And again, he wondered about her. What was Shelley's story? Well, he must have fallen asleep at some point because he woke up to hear frenzied banging at the front door. Someone screamed. "Hey, is anyone inside? Please, help me. The black things are coming." Mike looked at his watch. It was around 4 a.m. The sun still hadn't risen, so it was going to be dark outside. Then again, Robbie saw his black men, or whatever they were, during the daytime. He placed his hand on his gun and headed for the front door with Shelley and Robbie behind. When he got to the door, he wondered if there'd be a person or something horrible on the other side. Did he really want to know? Shelley looked around then, back at Mike. "Please open the door. You wouldn't want some poor guy dying when you'd had a chance to save him." Mike reached for the top lock, but Robert brushed his hand away. "Sorry." A moment later, the door was open, and this pale, skinny guy with dark hair and dark eyes was dragged in, and the door slammed shut and locked. Mike was surprised at how fast everything was done. The guy just stood there, shivering and looking around for a few moments. Thanks. Could feel them moving up on me, even though I couldn't see them." Mike narrowed his eyes. "Who?" "I couldn't see them, but I could feel them. You know, like how when the hair on the back of your neck rises when something's watching. When can we leave?" the guy asked. Glances were exchanged between Robert and Shelley. Mike just looked at the guy. It seemed like he was the real deal, not someone trying to trick them or something. He stuck out his right hand. "Hey, I'm Mike Duchamp." The guy stuck out a shaking hand. Mitch Myers. What's going on?" Robert and Shelley introduced themselves. Mike shook his head. "Look, I don't know, but we're going to leave when the sun comes up." Mitch looked around. What if the sun doesn't rise? I mean, like it's cloudy or something. Shelley frowned. "We'll leave anyway. Did you see anything while you were out there? I mean, earlier?" Mitch looked around like he was trapped. Yeah, I was hitchhiking down to Miami and this guy lets me off near a dead area. It's so quiet. No dogs, birds, no bugs. But, I could feel like I was being watched." Shelley and Mike exchanged glances. Mitch saw that. "What? You guys know something?" Shelley glanced at Mike again. "Yeah, we stopped for a moment in the dead zone before driving away. Not sure what was going on there, but we were happy to leave." Mike wondered if Shelley was still pissed at him. It seemed like such a dick move back then, but, well, he had apologized. "Well, I started walking, but I kept feeling like something was pacing me, like it was deciding when to attack. Got lucky and found a bike. I wrote that, but it didn't help. Whatever was following me just moved faster. I hear the footsteps speed up, but if I look back, I'd just see like a quick glimpse of something heading for cover. Started riding faster. A few blocks from here, the bike broke. Almost hurt myself in the crash. Anyway, I checked out the bike. The rear tire had been slashed by something made of bone. Shouldn't have touched it. My hand went numb like I'd stuck it in a freezer for an hour. You ever seen one of those ninja throwing stars? Kind of looked like that, except it was made of bone and something else that made me queasy to look at. I just left the bike, ran as fast as I could until I found the house with the open door. I should have kept going, but I had to see if I could get help or something. The open door was the first clue. Second one was the trail of blood that led through the house. God, stupid, curious me. I had to follow it right to a TV. What the hell? The TV turned itself on. Well, I didn't stay to see what had happened next. Got out and, well, eventually I ended up here. Thanks. I probably wouldn't have made it till morning, Mitch said. Mike noticed that Mitch seemed to be much calmer after telling his story. You guys got anything to eat or drink? Mitch asked. Robert shook his head. When we get into town, dinner's on me. Guys, let's go back to the living room and get some more rest. Mitch frowned. After what I've been through, I don't know if I can sleep. Don't worry. You can just relax for a few hours, Shelley said. They trooped back to the living room. Oh, there weren't enough blankets, but Mitch didn't care. He just sat on the couch. Mike sat on the other side of the couch while Robert and Shelley went back to their blankets on the floor. After a few minutes, he felt his eyes close. A bottle broke somewhere. Mike clawed his way back to wakefulness. Somewhere in his sleep-addled brain, he knew this was important. Time to bail. We gotta go, Shelley screamed. Mike opened his eyes to see Shelley ready to shake him awake. Flick that safety off your gun. Come on, it's go time, she said, and then moved to Robert and Mitch. Robert was sitting up, but Mitch was taking too long to wake. That's when Mike heard the dragging, sliding footsteps in the hallway. Yes, it was going down. He was excited, but also very scared. Mitch finally woke up and stood next to Shelley while Robert pulled a big duffel bag from a dark corner. Let's get the fuck out of here, Robert said, and headed to the door that led to the kitchen. I'll keep the rear secure. The rest of you follow Robbie, Mike said. Shelley stood and frowned. No, I'll check the rear. We might need that gun later. For a moment, Mike thought about arguing, but something in Shelley's eyes confused him. Let me guess. You'll tell whatever's on the other side of the door, it shall not pass. It was so quick, that fleeting smile, but somehow it went straight to his groin, and it felt right, like he'd guessed something close to the truth. Guys, you can do the kissy face later. Come on, we gotta go, Mitch said. Don't worry, I got a shotgun stashed near the door with lots of ammo. Right, let's go, Robert said, and opened the door. Mike followed Robert while Shelley and Mitch followed them. They were out before something banged on the door to the TV room. He hoped that they'd get out before the creatures entered the living room. Robert went to a cabinet and pulled out the shotgun. Then he placed a box of shells in his duffel bag. Let's get to the car. Mike just hoped it was clean and oiled. Yeah, he said, and got his gun ready. Behind them, the banging seemed to get more frenzied. Robert's hands flew over the locks, and everyone raced outside. And then he locked the door. For a moment, everything looked peaceful, even though the sky was covered in clouds. In the east, the sky was brightening up a bit. Mike hoped it was dawn. Even if the horrible things didn't care about sunlight, it did make it easier to see. The air seemed to get colder and heavier. A feeling of menace caused chills to run down Mike's back. Oh shit, they're here, Mitch whispered. A river of darkness rose up from the ground around the car. It separated into a group of figures darker than night, with dead white eyes. One of them stuck its hand, or paw, Mike couldn't tell, into his car's grill. Get away. Stop messing with my car, Mike said. Then he fired at one of the creatures. Nothing happened. Several of the creatures crept forward. Do something, Robert. Shoot them, Mitch screamed, and then backed up. Mike, give me a gun or we'll all die, Shelley said, and reached for Mike's gun. Mike looked at her. For a moment he thought about not doing it, but then he gave her the gun as the black figures approached. Well, he wasn't sure, but he thought there was some kind of golden flash when she gave him back the gun. Okay, shoot the bastards. Mike aimed between the eyes of the closest black monster and fired. It just faded away. The others stopped their slow crawl towards them. "Shelley, put some mojo on my shotgun too, please," Robert said. A few moments later, Robert started firing too. The remaining black figures all just faded away. Mike reached behind his back for another clip and came up empty. "Oh, I'm out. Yeah, I hope that's it. Do you have enough ammo, Robert?" "Yeah, but I have to dig in my duffel bag for it," he said. Something banged on the door behind him. "Shit. Let's go," Mitch said while looking around. They headed to the car and got in. Mike started the car, but got nothing. Nothing but clicks from the engine. "Oh, that's not good." He checked the dashboard. "Battery's dead. Now what?" Oh shit. Can't wait for a jump," Mitch said while his eyes darted around frantically. The banging on the front door was speeding up. Mike knew it was only a matter of time before whatever was trapped inside got out. "Pop the hood," Shelley said. Mike frowned. "What?" "Pop the freaking hood while we got the time," Shelley screamed. Mike hit the button for the hood while Shelley got out of the car. She stood in front of the car while glancing at the engine. Mike wondered what she was going to do while she stood there. "Robbie, I think I can see a crack in your front door," Mitch screamed. Mike saw a blue flash, and then the battery indicator moved away from no charge. It kept moving and stopped at a quarter charge, and that was enough for the car to start. Shelley slammed the hood shut and got back in. Mike started the car and stomped on the gas. The car tore down the road. He saw out of the corner of his eyes pieces of Robert's front door fly into the street. Nothing to be done about that unless whatever it is can run as fast as a car. Oh my God, what the hell's going on here? God, what if things are worse in New Orleans? We might be moving from the frying pan into a fire, Mitch said while still looking around. Mike wondered about that too. He also wondered about what Shelley was. She had some sort of... oh. He pushed that thought away. There's no such thing as magic. But he had seen things. Again, he pushed that thought back. Now is not the time for that. Shelley turned and looked at Mitch. She grinned at him. "Don't you like a good fight? Best way to know what you're made of. Let the good times roll." Mitch flinched and cringed away from Shelley, like she'd grown fangs. Robert balled up his fist and stuck it near Shelley. "Fuck yeah. Those bastards ruined my sleep and my life. Killed my neighbors. Yeah, I want payback." Shelley bumped his fist, and she turned to Mike. "How about you, Mike? Looking for some good times?" He glanced at her too wide smile. At first, the events of the day seemed strange and scary. Then he looked at his brother's face, and he saw the determination there. Whatever was going on, he was going to keep his brother safe and find out. He gave Shelley his own 1,000-watt smile. "Laissez le bon temps rouler. Let the good times roll." Mitch squeaked. "God, you guys are freaking nuts!" As the car sped toward the dark, huddled buildings under a swirling green cloud. So that was a bit of an insane story, wasn't it? Who was Shelley? What was she up to? Well, things were kind of revealed at the end, but it does kind of set things up for an extended story. More episodes, maybe. Well, we shall just see, but I don't know, there was something about that one that really appealed to me. Never quite knowing what was going on throughout the whole story, and everything left a little bit open. Well, that's enough for me for one evening. Oh, Friday again already. This week has just flown by, as they all seem to do, don't they? But of course, I will be back again with you. When? When do you want me? Come on, tell me. When do you want me? There'll be a story on my second channel tomorrow night, and maybe something here again on Sunday, one of the serials that I've been doing for you. Well, I'll definitely be back again soon, but until then, very, very sweet dreams, my dear friends, and bye-bye. Thank you so much for choosing to spend your time listening to me. Now, if you enjoyed the Dr. Creeping experience, then come find me on Facebook. Come chat with me on Twitter. Listen to the background music and download it if you like on SoundCloud. Drop by the store, pick up a t-shirt. And, importantly, if you've got a story you'd like me to read, send it to Dr. Creeping's Vault, the subreddit I set up so that I could read your stories. Now, looking forward to seeing you all again real soon. So, come check me out, okay?